Story 1. Mostly when they are asleep. They are at a good age right now. Old enough that they are sleeping well at night and young enough that they still take afternoon naps. Every once in a while, we will sneak away for a quick moment while they are watching a movie or something, but that is a gamble with the 3-year-old. Never know what we will come back to find that one doing. And they are old enough to stay overnight with relatives now, so we try to drop them off and get a hotel room together a couple of times a year at least. Story 2. Lock on my bedroom door. Lock on the bathroom door. Also, last week we told our kids that we have sex and that's how they were created. Pretty sure if that bedroom door is locked, they will keep on going. Story 3. For a few years, sex was just maintenance. As the kids get older and more independent, it gets more frequent and better. Those are the years where, if your relationship isn't strong, it will die. Struggle through, and when you're older, sex becomes really awesome. I know you're older, but still, it's great in a loving, long-term partnership. Keep going. Story 4. Part of parenting is making peace with the fact that sometimes all you have time for is locking yourselves in the bathroom for 5 minutes, bending her over the counter, and trying to get you both where you need to be as soon as possible. On the lucky times they go to bed early, try and make the most of that time. My wife and I aren't above drinking an energy drink for a pick-me-up beforehand, though it's rare that we need to. Story 5. Hallway and kitchen primarily, stairs at a push. I have 4 kids under 6 years old, and I get them all involved in an activity. Lego, Minecraft, painting all work, and then sneak off with the wife. Need to be close by just in case the kids trigger the apocalypse. Story 6. I'm seeing so many parents that say they do it at night when they think their kids are asleep. But let me tell you that sometimes we can hear it, especially when your room is next to ours, that noisy bed. Story 7. Keep them out of your room and lock your door. We tell our kids not to knock on our door if it's shut unless there's an emergency. Set boundaries and enforce them. Kids also take naps, and we have early bedtimes. You'll always find time for the things that are most important to you. Story 8. Your mom and I need to go plan a surprise. Stay in your room because if you hear us, it will ruin the surprise. They were pretty old before they realized it does not take 20 minutes to decide we are having ice cream. Story 9. It's weird, but you revert back to the old sneaky stuff you did when you were a teenager. We've had sex many times in our closet. Sometimes just teasing each other for an hour before the kids go to bed is the hottest thing too. Early morning sex is a thing, and it's a great way to start your day. Story 10. Spontaneous sex has sort of died, and we have to pretty much plan for it in advance. One of us will say something like, "Do you want to get the kids to bed early tonight?" Which means sexy time. The kids don't like being put to bed at 11 a.m., so my wife only says it after dinner now. Story 11. Try and sneak off for a quickie before I've pulled my trousers down. Hear footsteps coming up the stairs. Oh well, it's like an impossible task lately. She's taken to sleeping in our bed at the minute too because of monsters, so trying in bed is out the window. Story 12. From 3 to 7, our daughter was super well behaved. Some crackers, a juice, and putting on Disney or Nick Jr. gave us all the time in the world. From 7 to 10, now. We just lock the door while she's using her tablet or computer or playing in her room. She doesn't bother us too much when we do this. If she knocks, we say we're talking or I'm changing, and we try to finish in 5 minutes or so after that. Also, kids go to bed at around 8. It's easy to have intimate time once they're asleep. Edit, mine worked for a single child. If I had 3 or 4, it would be rough. Story 13. Our closet has been our love shack for the last 2 years. I am not a man, but that would be a man's answer as well. As far as having the time, it's a struggle to keep our eyes open later than our kids. Or Sunday morning when they wake up and occupy themselves with something. Good luck, friend. Story 14. I have 3 kids that are 3 and under. We manage about 2 to 3 times a week, mainly leaning towards the 2 mark. It's just insanely busy, but we get it in late at night. I'm a night owl, so usually around 1 in the morning is my go-to. Also, we're pretty big on afternoon delights while the kids are napping, haha. You just have to find time. Story 15. There's 2 stages to this problem. Sneaking away when the kids were little and now trying to sneak away when the kids are teens and very aware of what we are doing. Laugh out loud. Story 16. I don't know about others, but my parents didn't care. I could hear them occasionally, and it didn't bother me at all. How do you think people used to do it when they had 6 kids on a little farm in the past? Kids or no kids, they were going to engage in intimate activities. Story 17. Reminds me of what my granddad used to say. I'm going to go upstairs and make love to your grandma. He was just an honest man, really. He wasn't going to lie to a 4-year-old. George Carlin. Story 18. Father of 7 here. We usually have sex early before everyone is up or late after everyone is asleep. Sometimes I will wake up in the middle of the night and start fondling my wife, and it usually ends up with us doing the deed. On occasion, we also get a hotel room. Story 19. Last night was a perfect example. Our 2-year-old fell asleep around 8 in the evening. Our 4-year-old likes to watch a little television in bed. It was a weekend, so we let him. We were both in the mood, so we changed into some easy-to-conceal clothing, turned off all the lights so we could easily see if he stirred from his bed and left the room, and then went out to the living room and had our fun. It went off smashingly, and everyone had a nice night. Story 20. Hey, we are going to do some laundry. Do you want to come watch or finish the movie? It is a risky question, but my son will say he wants to watch his movie 99% of the time. Then it is down to the basement for a quiet laundry break. Story 21. So weird how so many parents allow themselves to be prisoners of their children at the expense of their happiness or mental health. I don't get it. Teach them to respect people's space when they need it sometimes. Nobody does this because they don't know how to, because their parents were clueless too, and they think that's how it's supposed to be. Expecting to be downvoted into oblivion, but I don't care. The truth hurts sometimes. Make the effort to take care of yourself and your children the right way. It pays off in the long run. Story 22. When I was young, my parents used to just lock their bedroom door when we kids were occupied with other things. If we needed them, we'd knock on the bedroom door, and they would yell out, "Be out in a second, we're having an important meeting." It seemed perfectly normal to me at that time, but I do remember wondering why they needed to have so many meetings. Honestly, I didn't even think about it again until I was about 20, when I remembered they used to do that, and it finally clicked what was going on behind that door the whole time. Story 23. I don't. It sucks. About the only time it's possible is right after they go to bed. But at that time, I'm tired and don't want to initiate sex. I'd rather just have a beer and watch Netflix. It used to be that sex was for the morning or afternoon. Nothing compares to morning sex, but that ended as soon as we started having kids. Pooh. Story 24. Listening to people with kids talking about their sex lives is some of the most depressing stuff out there. They are just as eager for sex as single people browsing dating apps, but it's worse because what they want is right in front of them, yet always just out of reach. You all are out here getting only quickies for years. Yikes. Story 25. Kids are really coachable, but it requires complete commitment. If you slip, they never forget. We have had a totally normal life after having kids, who are currently 5 and 7. Sleep training is a real thing and pays off significantly. Strict nap schedules and early bedtimes got us 2 kids that slept 12 hours at 6 and 8 weeks. That meant 6 p.m. bedtime and 6 a.m. wake up. We had our life back. But that also meant we used babysitters for date night. If I worked late, I didn't get to see the kids before bed. But we did not deviate on nap times and bedtimes. No staying up until even 7 for special occasions. It was the best thing we did, and lack of sleep was no longer an issue. If you teach them young when it's okay to get out of bed, barring emergencies and bathroom needs, they follow it. The next step after cribs was knowing when it's okay to get out of bed. Timed lamps do amazing things for this. It doesn't happen overnight, but every time a kid would come into our room, we just asked, "Is your light on?" "Oh, then get back to bed." After a bit, it stuck. Extra points if you manage the schedule via an app, so if you wake up a little late, you can just pause the schedule to give you more time. Once your kid learns to tell time, that goes away. And yes, this isn't popular with some, but there is a strict no kids in bed policy at our house. Not a single night. When we had a sick child, I slept with him on the couch or I'd lay in his bed. Never ours. I had too many friends who lost literally years trying to break the cycle after they let a child sleep in their room. We were like 10 weeks in, and life was normal with two kids, while friends were still dealing with crying children because they would only sleep in their parents' room. Forget that. Don't fret it. You set the stage. But it's hard because the little ones are persistent, maybe even more so than you. Hold the line, set boundaries, and build a foundation that pays off for years. Even now, we are normal people and have dinner parties while the kids are in their rooms asleep. No issues. Story 26. I think it's about how you spend time with your child. If you are constantly with them and fussing over them, they are going to become clingy and needy, and they will grow with the expectation that they are entitled to your time every waking minute. This is not right, and you need to enforce proper boundaries. As long as you mitigate the risk of them causing trouble, for example, by not having things like tins of paint or nail polish around, then you will not have to worry about them causing issues in those troublesome years anyway. Enforce proper and sensible bedtimes, and do not allow any resistance to their bedtime routine. Enforce the routine and habits, stick to it, and do not let them win, because children are great at testing these boundaries, and if you waver, you are in trouble. It is the same as with punishment. Even if it is their birthday or Christmas, if they have misbehaved, do not give in. They will not learn proper repercussions otherwise. After a while, the child will learn, settle into a routine, and you will be set. This will help them grow up without being so needy of your time every single minute, so you can actually take a break for 15 to 20 minutes while they are awake. When they are not awake, well, the world is your oyster, really. Story 27. That's not a sex problem. It's a parenting problem. Parents who set boundaries and expectations effectively don't have to deal with this, speaking from experience. Story 28. Serious question from someone without kids. Can't you just tell them that mommy and daddy need 30 minutes of adult exercise time and not to bother you? Story 29. We have been strict with bedtime and wake time. Once you're in bed, you better not get up unless you're vomiting or bleeding. The same rule applies for waking up. On Saturday mornings or holidays, you can get up and play in your room, but don't leave it unless you need to go to the bathroom. If our door is shut, leave us alone unless, again, you're vomiting or bleeding. When they're old enough, you explain that mom and dad need alone time. We've honestly never had a problem. Story 30. My wife and I used to go to love hotels in the middle of the day after the kids were dropped off at daycare or school. There are some nice ones here in Tokyo to help you get into the mood. Story 31. My husband and I have intimate moments in the morning before the child wakes up. It requires sacrificing some sleep, but we're okay with that. At night, we are too tired. Story 32. 3 kids here. All asleep by 8 to 8:15. Some days I'll be home alone with my wife while they're at daycare. Just gotta get it in while you can. And when you're not, you have to be doing things that are helpful with the kids so your wife won't hate you. Story 33. Took all your advice. When the little one went to bed, I grabbed my wife and took her to our room and made the most of the peace, which is few and far between. Suffice to say, we're both very satisfied. Thanks all. Roll on the next time. Haha. Story 34. That's what extracurricular activities are for. My child is in baseball on Tuesdays and Thursdays, English on Monday and Wednesday, and book club on Fridays. He seems to be getting tired of baseball and wants to try dancing. I wish the school offered classes. Story 35. We start our bedtime routine at 7:30. Kids in their beds by 8 o'clock for reading or quiet play. Lights out at 8:30. We have had this routine since birth. They are 7 and 10 now. We are relaxing nightly by 9. Story 36. Kids ruined our sex life. Absolutely ruined it. They annoy the hell out of my wife until she is exhausted daily. Add in the fact that I go to bed at 8 and get up at 2, and she goes to bed around midnight and gets up at 6. It just does not happen anymore. Story 37. Scheduled sex in the evenings after they are in bed, 3 times a week. Zero tolerance rule for kids in the grown-up bed, and me doing my share of the childcare and cleaning so neither of us are completely wiped out. I occasionally work from home too, which is the best since they are both at school. Story 38. Definitely, the biggest change in our sex life is reduced spontaneity. It's hard to seize the moment when there's a toddler stomping around the house. We don't exactly schedule intimate time, but we definitely discuss it ahead of time far more than we did before our daughter was born. I have the higher libido, so it's been important for us to communicate about our needs when it comes to intimacy. Communication really helps with, well, just about everything in a relationship. We often talk about how we are still adjusting to the new third person in our relationship, and we're learning about ourselves as parents and our relationship in the context of now being parents. Changes things a lot, but if it's important, you find a way. It's also nice to lean on family when we need a break to be alone, which honestly we should do more often. Both of us work full-time, so it's hard to shed the feeling that we're missing out on things with our daughter. It's gotten easier as she's gotten older. Believe it or not, we've had the best sex of our relationship since our daughter was born. Summary: we need to be much more methodical and intentional about intimate time.